You got to unmute yourself, or let's see, maybe I can do it. You're going to have to unmute yourself. There you go.
How about now?
Yep, that's good. Yeah, I muted you. I muted you guys because your side conversation was carrying over.
Oh boy. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the first item is Sable. I really don't have anything on Sable unless there's a question or something. But nothing new on Sable. I do have a couple things in mind, though. One of them is the signs. Like, you can refresh my memory what we're doing with the whole signs that say, hole number 1, hole number 2, whatever. Do we have those on order, or it's just a question about the signs, Bob, for the golf?
No, I've gotten that quote updated. So we're going to put it in the budget for next year for the posts, with the art arms and the whole signs. So it's going to be in the budget next year. We're going to get them next year.
But you've picked out some standard signs that you're going to put on each hole.
You basically, yeah. And before I put the final order in, we'll probably talk about it at one of our committee meetings, and we'll just show you exact. But again, it's going to be the standard post with an arm, with a plate that hangs down, probably Palmfront logo, Royal, number 1, par 4. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Is that this year, you think, or are you going to wait? Are we going to do that at some point this year?
I was going to wait and get them next summer because it's going to be a process. I mean, we got to dig all those, those granite plate stones got to come out. We got to figure out where we want to do them, and that's something I think can be done in enclosures next year, I think.
Yeah. And then, Skip, we talked about a role that the golf committee might be playing in the range, proposing the regrassing and drainage corrections to the range and the adjacent range practice green there. Can you refresh my memory on that? Did we say that we had a role to play in that?
You're talking about the practice range now?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's under new business, the practice range renovation.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, obviously. And your name's on it.
Yeah.
I did read this. I guess I read it a little too fast. So I don't have anything more on Sable. As far as Royal goes, Greg covered it pretty well. As you may know, we meet every 2 weeks with Chad Sanders, gives us an update. One of the comments he made was it takes about a week per green, and I believe we have 6 left. Is that right? 6 greens left, approximately. So it's a week per green. We're looking at about 6 weeks before the greens are finished. It pushes us pretty well into October, maybe even November. Not sure about that, but so we meet with him every other week, and we get an update from him, and then Greg also gives us an update on a lot of the various jobs that he's doing to, support the whole renovation effort.
Tom, I heard somebody yesterday talking, not yesterday, it was last Friday in our golf group, I think, about the work that was done on number 7. I didn't go out there and look, and I wasn't sure whether they were talking about on the city's land or whether it was on our land. But the indication seemed to be that, maybe the drainage wasn't working the way it was supposed to be. Greg, do you know what I'm talking about, or?
I don't unmute myself. No, I don't. It's working well.
You talking about along 6 Mile Cypress, Skip?
Yeah. The berm we built is working well. There's a couple of pockets Chad has to work on next to the path. It's holding some water. He's got to put a basin in behind 7 and 9T, on the entrance side of the car path there, and tap that in.
Okay.
But everything else is working. It's working a lot better than ever.
Okay. I
There's still
said,
water there. You've still got water coming out of that pine area and working down, but there's not, water where it was up over the floorboards of the cart in the past. It's all passable. So,
I think that's what they're talking about. The water, there's standing water over there, and I think maybe the expectation was that there wasn't going to be that anymore, and maybe there won't be after everything's completed there.
well, once it dries up, but unless we would have had to elevate that whole area to accomplish that. We've got the water out. Yeah, it's a little soggy. Would be cart path only in these cases, but in the past we had to close the hole because we couldn't even get through there. But that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Any other comments?
I don't have any. That's it for me, unless there's some questions.
Rich is not with us. Stu, are you still on his committee? Anything going on?
Nothing has transpired this summer. Rich has been in Canada a couple of times, so he's really been out of touch.
Okay.
Skip, I'll go back and mention something. I should have mentioned this up when Greg was on, but and Greg, you probably know this, that the CDD is having some top caps on some of the bulkheads replaced. I don't know if Travis has started on those or not yet, but we did approve some top caps being replaced on some of the bulkheads. I don't know. Have you seen them start on any of that yet?
No, they haven't started yet. But Mike, you might also want to just mention a little bit about you guys are bidding out the lake management now and some of the issues with that because some of the lake conditions and pond conditions have been mentioned with some of the water lettuce and so on and so forth, and duckweed and so on.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll go ahead and talk about that for a moment then, if it's okay, Skip.
Yeah, that's fine. Because Chuck would bring it up if he was here.
We've had problems all year with the lake management company and keeping our lakes cleaned up and weed free and that sort of thing. And Lake and Wetlands, who did do the work for us, got bought out by Solitude, and Solitude is the company that handles our bubblers, aerators, and fountains, and they do a pretty good job there. But they had trouble picking up the work on the lake management, and we just couldn't get any decent response out of them. So we're looking to go somewhere else with that. Maybe I've been out of the loop a little bit, and of course, because of the sunshine laws, we can't do too much in between as a group. So there was some meetings that were supposed to be held. I hadn't heard back where they were going to go meet with a Solitude regional manager and give them one more shot, I guess, or try to talk to them about the response. Because there are not a lot of companies out there that are available to do this work. The guy that ran the lake management organization before they got bought out locally, Gonzalo, the rumor was that he was going to start a company or go with a company. So we were kind of looking at that. As far as I know, we're still in the if stage of what we're going to do there, but we're trying to get our arms around it.
Thanks for that update, Mike. I know this. That's important to a lot of people. I hear from my lifetime partner in crime when she does get out and play around the golf every once in a while and says, "Boy, these lakes are messy." And
yeah, we've had some algae on lakes that we normally don't have algae on, and then we were also doing some. We're trying to get them to do some muck sampling for us because we were concerned about having all this algae. And of course, I think you guys know how it works. They treat the algae, and it makes it get heavy, and especially when we get rain, it makes it heavy and falls to the bottom. So you get more algae, you're going to get also more muck in the bottom, even if it's treated. So we were trying to get them to do muck sampling for us between some lakes. There are a couple of lakes that we're using a different product for algae on than we are others. But one thing that, and this has been going on for several years, but one thing they didn't do when they started was get a baseline of how much muck was in the bottom of the lakes that we were using the new product on, as opposed to the muck in the lakes we weren't using the new product on. So we're trying to go back and do that now and see where we are moving forward.
Okay.
But I
Sounds
think
like a reasonable thing to be doing.
the caps on top of the bulkheads, I think were Sable 8 was one of the worst ones. Down there to the left of the landing area, probably when you tee off. And then 18 Royal, number 6 Royal. There was a couple more too. I can't remember what they were.
Royal.
2 Royal?
Yeah, 2 Royal.
So we did approve that to be done.
What's the
So
shape of-
I thought he'd probably started on it already, but it probably won't be long until we get those replaced. Hopefully we can get Royal done before we get it open.
The bulkhead itself, Mike, is that CDD's responsibility?
It is now. Well, we had them all before except number 3 Royal, but now that that's been replaced, we have that one too.
Okay.
Except for the ones most everybody knows that abut up against a property owner's a property owner, then that's usually their responsibility in most cases. Like when you cross over from 15 Sable to 16. When you cross over and go toward number 7 Sable, on the right there are several homes that have a bulkhead on the.
Okay.
So the bulkheads like that are the property owners, homeowners' responsibility.
How long do those last?
Well, I'll hope they last about 10 more years, but I don't know.
Just in general, all of them?
Yeah, and it's just like our streets. We're going through some evaluation on some of our streets now, and we rely on Sam and Banks Engineering to really tell us when we need to do that, or try to project when we need to do that. So we have a reserve for bulkheads also, but we don't have a timetable. We don't like number 3, I guess, had a timetable for it to be replaced, but we don't have a timetable to replace them. We rely on Banks to tell us, and our field service engineer.
Hey, Mike, have the construction trucks done a job on our roads? I know some places I see cracks that I didn't before.
Yeah, construction and the tile trucks, and primarily I think is what did it. No, but that's not. I mean, it's a combination of things, because like Heritage Palms Boulevard, that was starting to fail anyway, because there's an old product underneath the topping there on that street that's Grip Flex. You may remember, George, when we did the Grip Flex on some of the areas, and the Grip Flex is breaking down, and so it's causing the asphalt to crack on top of that. And I noticed when I was down there a couple of weeks ago that there looked like there was another pothole there, about halfway between the gate and the stop sign. So we're Sam and Banks is working on that right now. Since our last meeting, we asked them to take a look at, and then we've done some patchwork on some of the streets, but Heritage Palms Boulevard will actually get it first, probably, the resurfacing, and it'll have to be milled and resurfaced.
Yeah, wasn't that stuff supposed to last 10 years, or the Grip
Well,
Flex?
it's been pretty close to 10 years, but they didn't. I don't think anybody knew what it was going to look like after 10 years.
I just think that if we end up putting a lot more patches on that boulevard as our entrance, I mean, that's That's what you see when you come in, you know.
Yeah, well, I think,
I would not like to see a bunch of squares all over the place, kind of chintzy.
George, they're going to be so distracted by the beautiful bunkers over on number 9. They won't even see the asphalt.
No, it's the clock.
That's further down after they get past the bunkers.
I suspect we're going to have to replace the sign that has the clubhouse here, that little sign there, because people will be watching the clock and go right through the intersection and knock it over.
I think we're looking probably at next summer for Heritage Ponds Boulevard. We obviously don't want to do it. We didn't want to do it this summer with the reconstruction stuff.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's move to new business. Tom already alluded to the practice range renovation, and at times we've talked about doing this in the first year or the second year of the renovation, doing half of it with Sable and half of it with Royal. At the last renovation committee meeting, we were told that it was going to be in the budget for 24, but that it could be in the budget for 23. It was actually George who suggested that we discuss the practice range, which needs drainage work in particular. The grass has held up pretty well, but something has to be done, particularly on that left-hand side. And so next year would be the time to do it. It is a separate project, and so it wouldn't hurt to have the recommendation of the golf committee to go ahead and do that work. Greg was going to get us some estimates, but I'm guessing he probably doesn't have those ready for us today.
No, not yet.
Okay. Let's see. The project would also include the rip and strip of the practice green immediately adjacent to the driving range. So that whole area would have to be redone. There can be some juggling, and with the mats, there's an opportunity for most days, I think, for people to continue to practice, maybe even while the work is being done. There was some grading that we discussed that maybe that needs to be graded a bit more towards the lake to also assist with drainage. What effect that would have on the position of the mats, I don't think any of us knows that at the moment. Any thoughts? Any questions?
Should we be giving Tracy a list of things that we would like to have included in the budget? And I guess when she finalizes the budget, she can find out kind of what fits and what doesn't fit. Like the signs and what we just said, and there's probably other things we could think of. Not big things, but things that we would want to do to the courses.
Well, George, I think Bob and Greg do that, but also there was a document that we forwarded to the board through the Strategic Planning Committee, I believe, that Stu's subcommittee worked on, that laid out how often certain activities related to upkeep of the golf course needed to be done. And those were all laid out very specifically with timing. Of course, cost estimates will have to be done when it's time to do those. So Greg has that tool, Tracy has that tool available. So I don't know. I mean, unless there's new projects, and I agree that this one would be considered because Greg and Bob had it in the budget for it to be done, but not next year, but the year after. But after discussion, we thought, well, we could move that up to this year if it isn't a problem. So this is really just I guess, a straw vote to say, does anybody have any issues? I would be strongly in favor of moving it up a year, unless there are detractors who feel there's reasons for waiting an additional year.
Yeah, well, that's something that Tracy would and the board would have to decide. If you don't want to increase the dues a lot, you know what I mean. It's something that you can only do at the end of the year, at the end of the budgeting process, or part of the budgeting process, to find out whether it's sane or insane at this year. But as far as the strategic things, we put that document out, but I think. Sometimes they collect dust. We all forget about it, but things change. Like we've changed already in less than 5 months on what we want to do with the practice grant. Our original plan was different than what we're saying now. So it's just a thought. It's just a thought that as a committee, whether we should say this is our wish list, and of course it's definitely integrated with Bob and with Greg. I mean, obviously they're the people that have to do it. But,
I was in that last golf course renovation committee meeting, and it was talked about, and I think everybody at that committee seemed to like the idea of moving forward a year earlier. So I know Bob and Greg are on page with that. I would think that the next thing to do is maybe to get an idea of what this committee wants, so that way you can give a recommendation to the board for something to think about and talk about. So I'm glad you brought that up, but why not get a feel of how this committee feels about it?
Anybody who has any thoughts about it to start with?
I like George's idea of putting together a list, and this would be like number one. I mean, putting together a list of things and getting it in front of the right people, so that early on, not later, we've got some eyes on it for budgeting, for locking it in, committing to it.
Bob has mentioned some things already, so I think he's had these discussions with you guys before, right? Because I think that he's already mentioned some things. Is that right, Bob? The things that you brought up to us before?
I've got to get you a new microphone.
I'm sorry. Well, you know what? I don't think we're continuing Zoom anymore, right, after this one. So
Yeah, that's right.
But I'll still look into getting a new microphone. Sorry about that.
Well, yeah, we had talked about the T signs. So, I mean, that's one of the things. There's some money in reserves, I believe, for those. I don't know how much. But, that's one of the big things we want to get done next year.
Okay, so somebody set me straight here. We've got two people on staff, principals, that are involved in the budgeting process related to the golf course. Bob Kelly and Greg Creech. They put together items. I don't think we've talked in the past about having involvement in this process, and I think it's been kind of mixed as to whether our input is needed or welcomed in regard to budgeting. But we know Bob's talked several times about the signs, for example, and I know that he's been indicated that he wants it in the in the budget. Greg does certain things in the budget. It seems to me, if we had a list in addition to that, it would be something that they didn't already have in the budget for this year or next. And I'm not sure I know exactly what those things would be. My list right now, Tom, would have one item on it, which is the one we're talking about. The practice range and the green. Well, I mean, what else is there? More signs for, number 2 Sable maybe, or
well,
I don't know.
It just my perception of the committees is to make recommendations to the board of what we would like to see done. Yeah, Bob and Greg are the guys that do it, but they put in their own budget, and I have never seen their budget. I don't know what Tracy cuts out of their budget. I've never seen it in the past.
Well, it doesn't really like that. I don't necessarily just cut things out of the budget. We talk through things and we go through them and we agree together. that are talked about in the committee and kind of agreed that you want to move forward with something, I mean, we kind of put it in the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me because that's basically a lot of the stuff we talk about, whether it's the TUI signs or whatever, come out of these meetings when it comes to new stuff, the driving range and everything else. So the committee is involved. Do we sit down with representatives from the committee at budget time? Not necessarily. The budget committee, because we're taking the stuff we've gotten from you guys for meetings and everything else. And so I think, a lot of stuff is represented, and we do have the long-term kind of plan, whether it's a structure on the range for instruction and things like that. I mean, those things are there. It just comes down to timing of when do we think it's the right time to pull those things off. Obviously, when you got a big project like regrass and the range, it's not huge, but it's still going to be significant dollars. There's only so much stuff we can do in a year by year basis. So, again, our best focus right now would be to push for that driving range money for next year.
Okay, so would it be helpful if there were, we can make a resolution and pass it today and make sure that it's in the minutes, and if you want that highlighted in some sort of a conveyance document when we send the minutes in, we can do that too. Would that be helpful, useless, worthless?
It would be helpful because it would give it some substance, and at least we can go to the board and say, well, the golf committee, is recommending this, but when it comes to final budget time, we definitely would like to see that.
Well, and there's no doubt when we do get to final budgets, generally what happens, there's whittling, right? Things start, you get to a number and it's like, well, that number's too high. We need to go back a little bit. But when you start cutting things, if you got, the whole golf committee who's recommended driving range, that to me, more times than not, protects it of saying, okay, we can't touch that because the committee really wants that. We all agree it should be there. So, yeah, I think that's very helpful.
That's exactly my thought, just to formalize it as, I know we're all on the same page. I feel confident of that, but I think we should document it.
Okay, so the motion is that the golf committee recommends to the board that funding be provided in the 2023 HP budget to complete the drainage and regrassing work of the practice range, as well as the rip and strip work on the practice green adjacent to it.
Yeah, and anything else we wanted to put, a list, a wish list. Yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah, I support that. I second that motion.
Okay, so Tom seconds. Is there any more discussion about the motion? I'm glad I'm recording this. I'll have to go back and listen to the recording to get my own motion. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your hands. Okay.
I guess you can't put a number on it. I mean, gone back to what George hit a little bit after being on the budget the last 3 years. I mean, it's going to boil down to how much you want to increase the dues. And as Tracy knows, insurance has gone up a lot, right? I mean, there's things that are going to hit that are going to have to be there. Tracy and the board are going to have to decide. Inflation's hitting everything, so you can be assured the dues are gone up. So.
Well, Greg was going to get those numbers, but I would argue, Ken, that even if he had them today, that's a decision that's above our pay grade. So.
It is. No, it's right. It's up to the budget committee and the board. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, you might want a lot of things, but there might only end up being one or two that you get. So, but anyway, it's good to have a list.
Okay. Tracy, do I need to make sure those minutes go to the budget committee too, or do you take care of that?
Yeah, we do. Well, we know, Bob, I, Greg, the three of us, we know. We'll make sure that we put something in there for sure. And, if this could be in the minutes, that would be fantastic.
Okay. All right. We can take care of that. Not a problem.
But now the motion just was, and I'm taking minutes on this, so I'm trying to be clear here. The motion was just to recommend to the board the renovation of the practice area and such and so on, right? Not not this whole list of things we were talking about.
Correct.
Correct. I got it.
Correct. Okay. Were there any? There weren't any objections. I think I saw everybody was here. Hand go up. Okay. The motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Betty, do you want to talk about the document that you sent me and whole locations? I think it may be moot at this point, but go ahead and talk about it a little bit if you want.
Yeah, briefly. Well, being a new member of the committee, I'm not real sure how many times you've talked about the pin placement, but I have been, well, I golf with high cappers down to very good golfers, and quite often they get upset over the pin placement. Maybe it's sour grapes a lot of times, but anyway, so I thought, I'll do a little research. So that way all of us can help guide them to understand why the pin is where it is. So that's why I sent that thing. That was the best one I found that was pretty simple and not real wordy. But I guess I think it's important for all of us to know, to be aware of where the pin placement should be or should not be, and help guide the people who are. A lot of times they'll say, that's an illegal pin placement, and of course there is no rule, so it's not illegal. They can put it wherever they want over the green, but it's just trying to come up with ways to explain it to the golfers that are a little bothered by it.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess, Greg might want to talk a little bit about how he works with that and directs his staff.
So, back at the beginning, one of the pro shop staff, it was Chris and one of my guys that went out and did all the pin placements on the older greens, and then John went out on the Sable greens and did all the pin placements on the sheets for those. They're on 18-day rotations, and we have them numbered 1 through 18. And each morning, whoever's setting the holes for that day, it could be multiple people, could be 2 to 4 people. They get a pin sheet, and not picking on the Guatemalans, but they have a little bit shorter pace step than we do. So we do train them actually to take a larger step or a pace, and during the training process of pacing off pins. They don't always get it right 100% of the time. Bob knows, I think Stu knows that I've been known to change pins. I look at the golf course just about every morning, except for Sundays and some other holidays. But when I'm here on a regular basis, I go through and look at everything, and usually catch them. And I'll call guys up on the radio and say, "Hey, pin on number 5 needs to be moved." It could be by an old plug, it could be on a slope or whatever. But we try to do our best. That is the process. Sometimes when they get on a pace, they get their paces off a little bit, I think. And we ask them to use some common sense too. I wish they played golf. That would make it easier. But anyways, that's the process that we go through. We try to police it and manage it the best we can. Every once in a while, there's some ones, Fort Greene on Sable has had its history of on the weekends I've gotten phone calls, and they've just allowed 2 putts on that one. But
there used to be a group of them that played. I haven't seen them for several years out playing now.
Yeah, I used to have a lot of staff that played, and they just don't play anymore. I wish they did.
Maybe one of you guys should go out and spot it every morning and just put a spot on a green and they can go plug it.
Paint marks.
Yeah, if you're worried about their judgment.
Well, we could put flags out, use an irrigation flag or something. We could do that. Sometimes it takes away from what I want my guys doing overall, and that's looking over the entire golf course. But we can consider it. I ask my guys just to, open your eyes, look at every pin every day. And it doesn't take long.
Yeah, I don't think that we have that many issues when it comes to that. Answering more of Betty's question, about when they're originally set up. You try and mix things up. You got 18 holes. You got 18 different pin locations. So you're always trying to have a mix of front, middle, back. Easy, moderate to difficult. You try and mix up each one of those rotations to kind of combine those. And we also have easy pin rotation that we use on some of the big shotgun days when we're trying to get pace of play around. So we'll be starting to actually do that process here coming up pretty soon. Hopefully by the end of September, start working on the front nine to start marking out hole locations, because we'll have to have Visage will have to come out in the fall again. And again, it could be late, probably not until December when we'll be able to really get them out here to measure the Royal Golf Course and GPS it for us.
Yeah. Do we have the process documented anyplace?
Well, it's in Visage. I mean, we have every pin location. I can print up a pin sheet of every location. They have those down at Golf Course Maintenance that they use when they are setting the cup. So, yeah, it's documented there. We don't print up the pin sheets anywhere.
No, I'm just wondering if somebody was interested and we had this central HP web location where people could go for information and have a menu item that was that addressed this particular issue. Do we have anything that could fit in there? Is that something we could develop?
I don't know. I don't know if you could pull stuff off of Visage, because like I said, Visage, I could print up physical pin sheets, whole location sheets. I don't know. Would we post, print them up, scan them, and have them all on the website? I don't know how useful that would be to people. I don't know.
It seems to me that the issue is where the flagstick locations are on the green, not the process of putting them on the green. I mean, once one of the flagstick locations have been established, then Greg's guys go out there and pace them off every morning pretty reliably. And if you haven't noticed, they do move the flagsticks around according to that 18-day rotation.
Why don't we include just a paragraph on exactly what Greg said happens as the process? Why don't I include that one paragraph that Greg just explained to everybody on my Friday blast? I'm not sure who reads it, but at least
that'd be good.
Yeah. In addition, there are also some established standards in our standards document that talk about that. I don't know if anybody's ever read that or not, but there's some standards in there about flagstick locations.
Interesting when you said that, because each department head is now working on their statement standards, and actually Greg already sent me his, so we do. I'll just include a paragraph and explain that whole process to our members. Those that are interested will read it, and those that aren't, well.
Yeah.
I think that would be great, Tracy, and Betty. That's something you could save and use it to refresh your memory occasionally when you were talking to people. So, is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks for bringing that up. I probably wouldn't have been addressed otherwise, and if it helps people understand, or if it addresses flaws in the process, so much the better. Okay, around the table, anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment. I'm a golfer too, and the opinion I have is that we need to define the problem. And I'm not so sure we really did. I don't think there's anything wrong with the process. The problem that I see is that occasionally, maybe one hole per day that I play, the cup is cut right on a slope. And right now, the green's pretty slow, so we don't have too much trouble with it. But when we get into December and January, that ball could turn around and come back at you. And I don't know if it's illegal. It's just a ridiculous pin position. And I find that more often than not, where the guys get a little upset, or not guys, women, and players get a little upset because by accident, it wasn't intentional. The cup was cut on a slope that is ridiculously hard. And our new greens are even even more difficult than the old ones to a certain extent because the slopes are a little bit less visible. They're not ski slopes anymore. They're these subtle turns. So the problem is that we occasionally get a cup that's cut in a ridiculous position. And I don't think the process is the problem. It's just the individual putting the cup in. It's just not selected a very good position. And I don't know if there is a magic bullet to it, but one way you can deal with it is the previous day, I suppose. The previous day, not the morning of. That's unrealistic. You could say, why don't we mark the pin position for the following day, and then the person won't have to do this at 4 o'clock in the morning or in the dark or whatever. But it just seems like the problem that we're trying to solve, the problem is that it's this occasional cup that's cut in a particular spot. And I'm not sure it's a process that's involved.
Well, whether it is or not, you're suggesting a change in the process. So I would guess that there's something wrong with the process that leads to this
Well,
problem.
I know that I've been on the golf committee quite a few years now, and this is a direct that comes up every year at some point. And I'm sure Bob hears about it in the pro shop, and people come storming in there. Did you see what the hell on that? Maybe there's no magic bullet here.
No, and I don't think Betty believes, I shouldn't speak for you, but I don't think you believe you're walking out of here with any magic solution. It's really just a matter of having people understand that there is a process. It's not just somebody, randomly going out and sticking a hole in the green, but that given that it's human beings that do this, every once in a while there's going to be a mistake made. And, if somebody explained it to me that way and I hadn't heard all this before, I would have said, oh, okay. And there'll be other people that just will, stomp out of the pro shop still being angry about it. I don't know that there's much you can
That
do.
has to be men. Women wouldn't do that.
Sounds like a good thing for Tracy to address on her notes, but it also sounds like a good article for the Between the Palms.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that is a good idea. Okay, anybody else?
I have one other comment that just got to mind. Has anybody noticed there's a lot of stones in the bunkers? I don't know where that came from, but one of my friends, Marilyn Warner, just mentioned a few hours ago. Marilyn said, there's rocks in the bunkers. And I said, which one are you talking about? She said, number 9 Sable on the right-hand side by the green. And she's right. I have seen rocks in the bunkers. I don't know, Greg. I don't know if you've seen it, but I don't know where they come from.
I know exactly where they're coming from, and you'll understand when I explain it to you. Okay, so it's all drainage gravel from the old greens mix when the greens are flipped. So when we flip all the greens, all that material gets spread around on the green slope, and that material eventually works its way into the bunkers. Okay, so it's not coming up from the drainage of the bunker. Yeah. It's the old gravel greens mix that was turned, not the greens mix removed, but the gravel is turned, right? Mixed and hauled off to the side when the cavity's made. And so where is that? And you won't find it around fairway bunkers. You're always going to find it around a green bunker.
Yeah.
So it's coming in from that soil where we've mixed it, and that drainage gravel's mixed in with the green slope or surrounding area.
Well, I started tossing it into the lake, and I said, I'm going to be here a while if I keep this up, because there was hundreds of them. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and it's not big rocks. It's the drainage size gravel. It's,
these are an inch. They're pretty good size.
I did find some in the bunker, the left bunker at 9 Green the other morning. There was 2 of them, and I walked in, chucked them out in the lake, and raked it. So that was a unique circumstance. I don't know where those rocks came from, but I'm seeing a lot of that drainage gravel in the bunkers.
Now, rule of golf. Can I move the gravel?
Yeah.
It's dangerous? Yes. I can move the gravel. Okay.
Under the new rules, I think you can, right?
You can move glass or things
You
like
can move a loose impediment.
Okay.
Yeah.
think that's right. Okay, good discussion. All right, our next meeting is October the 3rd. I did put in a request. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I presume that we'll get the requested dates for the meeting room. By popular demand, this will be our last Zoom meeting. I will have to have an alternate chairman for at least one, maybe two meetings that I'm not going to be able to make. I do not think we should use hybrid meetings of in-person and Zoom.
I agree.
They do not work for the people on Zoom. They're awful. Okay, so next meeting, October 3rd, will be hopefully in the activity center in the board conference room.
Same time?
Same time, yep, 3:30. And generally we run till 5, even today, where I thought we for sure would be done at 4:30. Okay.
You can serve dinner.
One question, Skip. The hybrid meetings, you're talking about in-person and Zoom.
Yes.
But if it's a teleconference, in other words, if we wanted to phone in and not be on a screen, does that work?
Those may work a little bit better, Tom. I had those in the past, and I think they work okay. The main problem I have with the hybrid ones is that if people are not near the microphone, you can't hear them. And inevitably, we have side conversations in our meetings. And those side conversations usually kill the microphone, and you get nothing but garbled nonsense on the Zoom end. And I don't want to pick on the board, but that's my main experience. But I've had it in other locations too. So that's
But calling in on the phone does work much, much better.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Video.
We'll have to get somebody to set that up though. For Joni set that up for us, or
Yeah, a conference phone is easy. I mean, people just need to have the phone number to dial into at the time. That one's pretty simple.
Yeah, I may be able to do that since we're not going to be down at HP until, January, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah, as Bob said, we'll just get the number. It's a 278 number and another digit. And
Yep.
look in.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry we won't see you until January again, Tom. But
Well, I may be down there in November, but just depends on the dates.
all righty. We look forward to seeing all of you then. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay. Stacia, second.
Second.
George, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. See ya.
See ya. Thanks, Bob.
I don't think it's a process. It's where the flag stick locations are. That were established. So I can't find any that are.
See the side conversations too. All right.